that I do this correctly. Okay, and I think I did it. I think I did it. All right, we have about 5 minutes. So, but I just wanted to make sure I hit record ahead of time because I'm used to I've done that so many times, you guys. I've done that so many times where I'm like, oh, I'll hit record when I get started, and then I don't hit record when I get started. Okay, perfect. All right, so I think everybody has not started with students yet, but is starting students this week, right, Emily? You start in 2 days? Is it 2 days?
Students come tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow. Oh my gosh, tomorrow. I sent my oldest off to middle school this morning, you guys. I did. Hi, Kathleen. Kathleen has made it. Hello, Kathleen. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. And I know we have chat in here, Becca. Let me see. There it is. Okay. I was explaining, Kathleen, to everybody that was coming in. I'm not used to Google Meets. I'm used to Zoom. So I'm orienting myself to all the things on Google Meets here. This is going to be different for me, but I think I've got all of my ducks in a row here. This will be a little bit different for you. Yes, we started school here. I'm in Colorado. We started school here this morning, and I sent my oldest off to middle school. It was a very weird feeling. Isn't that wild? Oh man. So crazy times, crazy times. But it was also lovely. Bye, children. Bye.
Yeah. After the summer.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Let's see. All right, I'm going to try something here without, hopefully this doesn't send everything into it. I don't think it did. You can still see my screen okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
We're great.
Okay. I have my little notes here, and I'm not really sure. Let's see if I can. So if I mess it up, just let me know. I'm trying to move things a little around. Okay, I think I'm good. All right, so I think the chat is open. If anyone wants to introduce and say what district you are from, like I said before, we have about 15 districts from all around that registered for today's roundtable. We do have quite a few people that have asked for us to record. So just as people are coming in, just because you guys know how it is, we're all inundated with meetings. Not everybody's going to be able to make it live. So just so you guys know, welcome Paul from Lawton. Just so you guys know, we are going to be recording this session just so that we can share it with those of us that aren't able to make it live today. So we will be recording just to give you guys a heads up on that. Hi, Cynthia Altus, welcome. Welcome, Emily from Putnam City. This must be, it says read.ai meeting notes. This must be a Google thing. Welcome, Kathleen.
Does someone have their meeting notes maybe turned on? That's probably.
Maybe. Which is great. That's fine. There we go.
Welcome, Kathleen. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you, Becca. I'm so glad you told me about this. I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone is doing.
Welcome, Rana. Welcome, welcome. Okay, I think we're right about on time. Just about to get started. Okay. And I'm getting this, multiple people want to join this call, and I think you're able, I just want to make sure that I don't need to enter anyone in.
I think it's just the AI meeting notes that people have attached to their profiles
Okay.
that are trying to join. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's
That-
not,
yeah,
it's
I think I did
because-
that, right? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I don't know what those are. Perfect. Perfect. I think I admitted it all because I should absolutely have your note takers. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Like I said before, just to make sure that anybody who came in after the fact, after I said, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but just to make sure everybody know I am recording this just for the purposes of there were 15 districts that were interested in this talk, but obviously just because we're all inundated with meetings and it's a crazy time of year, I like to say it's like tax season for accountants right now, right? That's how we feel in the education world. And not everybody can make it live. I'm recording this so that I can share it with everybody who's not able to make it live today. Yeah, crazy time of year. So I am recording it. But welcome, everyone. Today's roundtable is really designed to be a conversation for us. And my job is to guide us so that we can share our experiences and our ideas. And so the topic is really timely. Oklahoma's made significant changes to their SPED screening rules, and that means all of us are kind of navigating how to adapt. And so by the end of this conversation, my hope is for that each of you leaves with at least one nugget or concrete step on how you can take a stronger MTSS framework for speech in your district. And lucky enough that I have Emily Gaden here with me. And I'm Stephanie Silber, so just to kind of introduce myself, let me make sure I get my slide moving along here. My name's Stephanie Silber. I'm 18 years into this. 18 years into this game here. I was a lead SLP, and up until this school year, actually held a caseload myself and a lead SLP for Amplio. Recently took a role in district partnerships. And so this is my very first school year working without a caseload myself and not being a lead SLP myself. But I do find I love it because I get to work with fabulous people like Emily and Diane, her executive director chair, or she's the chair and her executive director. I work with people around the country like Emily, finding solutions to their problems. And so I'm really finding that I absolutely, absolutely love my new role because I get to work with people like Emily. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself since you're helping me with this talk today.
Hi, I'm Emily Gaden. I am a speech language pathologist and the speech language pathology department chair in Putnam City Schools. And this is my 12th year in Putnam City. And I still carry about a caseload of 20 to 30 of early childhood 3 to 6 year olds, and then also help on the admin side.
Which is pretty amazing, Emily, because
Pretty full plate, Emily.
I do.
Carry
I do
a
have-
caseload, and you have like is it 44
Yeah,
SLPs you have?
about close to 40, 45 SLPs. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
pretty impressive, which is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So yeah, Emily and I felt like it would be really neat to bring you guys together today. So I've done this for other states as well. This kind of roundtable idea. I found that once I took my role in district partnerships, and I spend so much time meeting one-on-one with people like Emily, I thought I started a series called Off Mute First. And what I found that is when people from the same state get in a room together, some amazing collaborative talks happen, which is really cool. You guys get your heads together and you start talking about your different districts and your different schools and when you're different states, because you have to follow kind of your state guidelines, really neat conversations kind of happen. And you get to take those nuggets away back to your schools and back to your districts, and just really collaborative talks happen. And I see Diane has joined us. Hi, Diane. Thank you so much for joining us. Diane is the executive. I'm going to make you introduce yourself, Diane. I'm going to make you introduce yourself. Diane is the executive director, right? Is that you use your title right?
Actually, it just changed. Now I'm Chief Special Services Officer. Yes,
Oh,
for what that's worth. No, with Putnam City Schools. So have been working in collaboration with actually just Emily's been helping to really champion this effort for us for the district. So here to support her.
Amazing team. Yeah, so going forward, let me kind of move on to our next slide here. We're going to just talk about what's changed with Oklahoma guidance on the special education referrals, what led Emily to reach out to me and champion this effort of what they're doing, and how Putnam City is approaching that procedural change with an MTSS approach. And so what has changed in Oklahoma referrals to special education? Now, I deal with districts all over the country. So I'm going to go ahead and try to kind of gloss over these rules. And Emily, please tell me if I mess them up because you know them more than me for sure. All right. So these special education updates in 2024. The screening was no longer the final gatekeeper. All the referrals moved to review of existing data or the red regardless of the screening results. That red timeline tightened, so it must be held within 10 school days of referral if the additional data may be needed. And the parent consent was now required, so it was needed for all non-universal speech language screenings. And was there anything to kind of add to that, Emily? I felt like when you came to me, basically what kind of led you to come to me was you said something to the effect of last school year, we had 500 referrals in the school year and 170 kids qualified.
Yes, yeah, we had just under 500 initial speech language referrals. District-wide, we have almost 20,000 kids, so keep that in mind. But and 170 of those went to initial evaluation. And with the changes from the State Department, it was just, it was possible we were going to end up with hundreds of referrals a couple weeks into the school year. And with having to complete the review of existing data now after the screening and triggering child find, that's just not possible. We would never do therapy, basically.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you could essentially be faced with, like, I had written kind of a note here, without like that structured pre-referral process, SLPs could be faced with potentially 20 plus 30 plus open evaluations at once, overwhelming caseloads, risking compliance, kind of alluding to that. Yeah. Let me make sure I'm moving along here. So I think you just alluded to this, nothing, kind of all along these things that Emily just alluded to. All referrals triggering child find, 45 school day evaluation timeline starts after consent. Pre-referral data still needed, must be collected proactively without delaying the red or eligibility process. Anything there I'm missing, Emily? So we can see how this is piling up. Yeah. So question that we kind of wanted to propose, because we want to keep this kind of as that roundtable, and we're going to get into kind of that peer-to-peer talks that we want to have, and we want to hear about your all's districts too. But what is the biggest challenge related to these updates in your all's district? Are any of you experiencing some of these pressures, these related things? You can speak up, we're all off mute here, or you can type in the chat, whatever you guys are most comfortable with. You can tell us where you're from. I know we did some introductions in the chat before we kind of got started with this talk. We want to hear from you. Anybody? I think I hear typing.
It sounds like, Emily, your sort of motivation for all of this was primarily related to the kind of the overwhelming number of referrals you were suddenly getting. I'm curious if other districts are experiencing that as well across Oklahoma.
Yeah. And the referral numbers may have increased since COVID especially, but I think we did always have a lot of referrals, but in the past, it was always just, if you have any kind of concern, refer them. But now with the changes, if anyone, or to update to be matching IDEA, if anyone has a concern and completes a referral form, then we have to complete the review of existing data, whether it was truly a needed referral or not.
Right.
Sure.
And so having that data ready to review is really important. Yeah. So I see Corey's from Yukon. I'm going to kind of go through the chat and see is the Yukon Public Schools. I know Cynthia had said you were in Altus Public Schools. We have Tracy from Enola and Paul is from Lawton. Any of you experiencing increased referrals as a result of any of these changes? And like I said, you can put them in the chat. And we can definitely go through in just a moment and talk about, Chelsea said, good morning, Yukon Public Schools here. We've noticed high referral rates. We're concerned about the recent changes as well, for sure. Yeah. So definitely feel free to keep putting in the chat if you guys are on mute. That's perfectly fine.
What we'll do is we'll kind of go through what some of the changes are that Emily has put into place next. But feel free if you need to keep putting your information in the chat if you feel more comfortable doing it that way. And we'll kind of have Emily go through what some of the things are that she's done in her district next. So Putnam City's approach, what they're doing, and I know, Emily's kind of said we're in phase one, right? Because this is new. This is what they've done. But I will say I have been, I'm going to toot your horn for a second. I have been immensely, truly, genuinely amazed by both you and Diane. Like, they have come together as a team. Their initiative was so strong. Like, they came to me and said, this is what we want to do. So we're going to kind of show you what their approach is. And Emily, I can speak to this, or you can kind of put together, because I feel like you came to me and was like, this is what I want to do. So I can't take credit here, like, at all. And so she had this set out, kind of how she wanted this to go.
Yeah, so what we're doing is having language, speech and language, be part of the MTSS process in Putnam City. And we're lucky that Putnam City already had a pretty strong academic MTSS process that we could model off of. So instead of doing universal screening, which we did consider, but was going to be a bit too much to take on, a teacher would have someone on the team, likely a teacher, would have a concern. They would complete the survey assessment of language, which is a form that our district created, and we have one for early childhood, elementary, and secondary. And then the teacher would bring that survey assessment of language to our data meeting and share it with the SLP and the team. The team would review it, the SLP would give input, and then if the student needs targeted intervention, the SLP would help assign that through Amplio. And hopefully that will be easy for the kiddos to just log on in their classroom and do the interventions. Then that data would be reviewed, likely at the next data meeting, but could be beforehand. And then based on that, the intervention could be changed, the frequency could be changed. If they haven't made progress, if they did make progress and they don't have any other areas they need to work on, they could exit the MTSS process. And then if you've done your intervention changes and the team still says we think there's more, then you would use your intervention data to complete the review of existing data, gather all your other existing data, and decide if you need consent, if an evaluation is warranted. But the way that we are having it done is that the speech language pathologist is just consulting with the PST team, and we aren't providing the intervention. The general education teacher is providing the language intervention to the students. So that way we are not triggering child find until we have enough existing data.
So before I kind of move on to kind of explain a little bit of that more in detail too, different ways that could look like, does anyone have any questions regarding that you want to put in the chat or ask aloud?
Should probably also note, this is just for the language portion of it.
Yes.
Because
good point.
that is within the scope of our general education teachers. I actually have 7 pages single spaced of Oklahoma State standard, ELA state standards that correspond to areas that we have on our survey assessment of language. Now for articulation, voice, and fluency, that's not within their scope. So the MTSS process for articulation, voice, and fluency, we have a referral form that the teacher or team member will fill out. They will get signed written consent from the parent for the SLP to screen whatever area of need it is. Because that was another State Department change. You don't have to have the parent consent on Ed Plan, but you do have to have some form of written consent if it's not universal screening. So the gen ed teacher gets the referral form and that signed consent from the parent, gives it to the SLP at the data meeting, and then we do screen. So at that time, it does trigger child find once we're screening them. So we'll have to complete a red for every single one of those.
And then, Emily, can you explain on the speech side what's happening after the screening? are you guys providing tiered interventions on the SLP team, or is it going straight to referral at that point if there's a referral on the screen?
Yeah, so for like articulation, voice, and fluency, once we screen, that does trigger child find. So we have to complete the review of existing data. You could say, you know, say it's like one sound that is stimulable and like it's coming in, right? So you can document all of that on the read and the written notice and say that an evaluation isn't warranted based on the existing data, but we still have to complete the review of existing data and say whether or not we're going to move forward with an evaluation or not.
Great.
Emily, this is Kathleen. This is wonderful to see. This looks like an outstanding model, and I'm so glad to be able to see this. So I just want to be clear on where the SLP steps in with the language part. So the teacher is using the tool. The results pinpoint some students who appear to need a tier 2. And then the SLP comes in. Does the yeah, so you tell me. So where does the SLP come in and what does she do?
So the SLP is consulting and working with the gen ed teacher and the whole data team. Like in our district, that includes the administrator, instructional coach, and gen ed teacher, usually, sometimes the school psych. So after the teacher has a concern and completes the survey assessment of language, that is when they bring it to the SLP and we consult on what those results indicate, where it identified areas of need, that sort of thing. And we assign the intervention in Amplio. So that's all on the SLP. The teacher is providing that intervention that we assigned, though. They're the ones doing it in the classroom. Then back with the SLP, the general education teacher and the team review the data once they've been doing interventions. The SLP could recommend a change in the intervention, or the team could decide a change of frequency, whatever. And then once it's moving, you know, we've either decided, yeah, they're doing great, they're exiting the MTSS process. Okay, great. So we didn't ever have to do a review of existing data because it was all on the MTSS process considered general education. If they are still having areas of need, or we're just not sure, and the team says we need to move forward with an evaluation, that is when we complete a review of existing data and the SLP would evaluate.
So the SLP doesn't really need to see the kid.
Right.
Until it gets to the point of the kid's really not going anywhere, we need an eval.
Yeah. Just for language, because that is within their scope.
Yeah. This is outstanding in terms of workload.
Yes, that was our main
Really
concern,
outstanding.
because initially we thought, well, we could have the SLPs do the MTSS process, but that's not really help. I mean, you know, like we're just taking it from one place and putting it in another place for the SLPs. And this was, like I said, we were really lucky that Putnam City already has a really great MTSS process in place for academics. So our teachers are used to this process. In fact, I have a flow chart that I made that compares the process. And the only difference in the academic process and the language process is that they are doing universal screenings and we are not. We're just doing it when there's a concern.
Excellent. This is outstanding. Thank you. I'm so glad you're able to present this to others.
Yeah, of course.
If for those of you who might not know Kathleen, I wanted to just share. Kathleen used to be the director of school services for ASHA and was instrumental about 25 years ago, Kathleen, on really kind of putting information out there for SLPs on our role in RTI and Tier 2. At the time, we were mostly calling it RTI, and I think most of the terminology has shifted to MTSS, although RTI is still obviously used. And I think it's kind of fun to have Kathleen here as part of this conversation, because this is something that she's had near and dear to her heart for a very long time.
Yeah, thank you, Becca. Yeah, it's wonderful. You know, when IDEA was reauthorized in 2004, if we can believe that, so we're looking at 21 years ago, that's what opened the door for SLPs being able to be involved in this. But everyone was concerned, as you're saying, Emily, that it's going to increase the workload. They weren't seeing the way out of that. So, and I'm sure there are pockets of excellence around the country that have managed to do it. but it's not widespread. And what you're doing is outstanding. So this is such a good model to be shared.
Oh, thank you. We've
I
worked,
think it's-
we've worked
yeah.
hard on it this summer.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
that
think
is
it's
a caveat.
yeah.
We haven't implemented this yet. We created
Mhm.
this over the last 8 weeks.
Mhm.
So it will be rolling out first day of schools tomorrow. So,
Mhm.
you know, we may have more information on how it actually works in practice later on, but it is nice still being like in the trenches that I'm able to kind of think through some of the issues that might arise. So hopefully we've got plans in place.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. I would love to get updates.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions? I think that, you know, speaking to how Emily and Putnam City is doing it, and there are different models in different districts and different states. Just speaking to it can be done in different, you know, ways. There are other states and different models where SLPs are a little bit more hands-on, and there are where they're a little bit more hands-off, you know, depending on your state, your district, how you're implementing things. This is just how Putnam City's doing it. Amplio does have MTSS tracks for speech, where speech is there are tracks for that. So this is just how Putnam City's doing it, but you know, it's all a work in process, you know, and it's all done kind of differently depending on your state and your district. But therefore, you know, phase one, they're rolling theirs out. And so we thought there's just such a good plan in place for their phase one that it just felt like it needed to be something to be shared. Yeah, any questions before we kind of move on to that next?
I was going to also toss in that we've actually been kind of rolling it out. Yesterday, our SPED departments got information about the new process and everything. And one thing we've been saying is, you know, for SLD, the MTSS process is required when we're looking at that category. When we're looking at SLI, it's not required, right? This is just a procedure that Putnam City has. So we're not delaying or denying an evaluation with this process.
Right.
And if a parent requests, obviously we're going to go straight to a red. We're not going to say, well, they've got to do 12 weeks of intervention first. And then, you know, if they get all zeros on the survey assessment of language, that's enough data, right? You've got your existing data.
Of course.
So it's not, we're not going to delay or deny evaluations for students that need it. We can go straight to the review of existing data.
Oh, yes. I love that point, Emily. I think especially because I think some people are hesitant, you know, about this process, and they're worried. And I think that brings up a very good point that, you know, our ultimate goal, that's a good point, Cynthia. I'll speak to your question in just a second. I think the ultimate goal is not to deny evaluations necessarily. It's more about reducing the risk of unnecessary referrals. It's not about denying the kids that really need those referrals, reducing the risk of unnecessary referrals. And Becca and I have had some really great talks about the fact that it's about getting in early too. It's about prevention. I love the model of MTSS and RTI about getting in, not relying on the failure model, but this idea of early intervention. I am a huge proponent of early intervention and getting in earlier with our students. I love that idea, you know, just because I began my career in early intervention with that birth to 3 is where I began. And so like the idea of just starting earlier, even with kids, and getting in earlier with kids and providing supports earlier in the MTSS process is near and dear to my heart. So Cynthia brought up a great question about the screener, the survey assessment of language that you had in about sharing. Let me pull up her actual question. Hold on real quick here in the chat. She asked about your the district developed screening tool for language. If you had that and able to share that. If you're able to share that, Emily, and I don't know if you're willing or able to share that, but I also wanted to throw out there that Amplio is coming up with a universal screening tool that we will be able to share as well. I don't know when that is, Becca.
Not a universal screening tool. It's a
not
speech and
universal. I'm sorry. I threw out that word universe. My apologies. I'm so used to saying universal.
Yeah.
I didn't use that word.
It's a speech and language screener, so it has language components and speech as well.
Yes.
But yeah, we have, and that's going to be available probably in the next several weeks. We're just finalizing it.
That I
Yeah.
believe will be a downloadable.
It'll be a
Pretty cool.
downloadable form that can be used, even without any of our platform subscription.
That's what I meant.
Mhm.
That's what I meant when I said universal. I meant free.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd be willing to share the ones
okay.
we made. I mean, it was
Great.
just a group of our SLPs that looked at, developmental milestones
Okay.
and things like that. And we tried to keep them one page. It's front and back, one page.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure the
So
best
Emily,
way.
I have them. If you're okay with me
Oh.
share, because I think you shared them to me.
Yeah.
If you're okay with me sharing them, I'm happy to share them so that you don't have to,
Yeah.
because I have the list.
I do think
But
there
I'll
was
also.
a formatting issue on the
Okay.
secondary one. So
Well, then,
if
okay.
the information is still correct, but if people get it and they see
Okay.
the numbers out of order, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. So Cynthia, stay tuned, is long story short. And when I said universal, I meant free for ours when ours comes out as well, because we're in the process. And I think it's relatively soon that we will have one that is free as well. So yes, great question. Any other questions regarding to that? Okay, so I think everyone's familiar with the tiers, the different tiers, tier 1 being universal, and then tier 2 and tier 3, and the different ones that we have, the interventions that Emily is going to be basing her team on. Is there anything that you want to go through as far as these tier 1s, these different tiers, Emily, and what you guys are utilizing in your process?
I mean, just universal obviously is tier 1, what they're getting in their classroom.
Mhm.
Tier 2 is where the gen ed teacher will be providing the intervention through Amplio that the team has determined as appropriate. And then tier 3 for us is when a review of existing data would be completed and determine if an evaluation is warranted or not.
Yeah. Yeah, so just going back and speaking to how, Putnam City is getting ahead of these challenges, moving to that district-wide MTSS for speech model, and that goal being to intervene earlier, reduce referrals to SPED, and standardize that process across their schools. So implementing at that tier 2 target. Yeah, great.
And for articulation, the tier 2 doesn't have an intervention like we talked about. So
Right.
tier 2 is the SLP screening.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And so, truly, going back to what she said about the tier 2, they're not. Other school districts that we work with do have that specific tier 2. And you said that was particular to Oklahoma, though. And can you allude to that just so I understand a little bit better? In Oklahoma, the way you said it before, you need to do, help me out here, Emily, you need to do a screen. The speech therapists need to be involved. You couldn't use that MTSS track for speech because
we did try. So the new procedures rolled out last school year from the State Department. And so last year we kind of tried just doing a classroom observation for articulation, or relying on information we were getting from the general education teacher. But then after we completed review of existing data, and did the evaluations, it was not what we were getting from the teacher or from the observation was not accurate a lot of the time.
Sure.
So we were evaluating students for articulation that really probably should have never been, but that was because the teacher wasn't a great reporter of what they were actually hearing for articulation errors. And in an observation, when you're not pulling the student out to the hallway or whatever, it's loud. There's other kids trying to talk to you. You don't get a good, any good data on errors. So that's why we decided as a department that we were going to actually have the SLP screen for articulation, voice, and fluency. But like I said, when we pull them out, that triggers child.
Yeah. It's really interesting because different states have different types of guidance on this. And so we've talked to districts who, like one district in New York, we know they actually hired an SLPA to do the tier 2 interventions in the classroom, including for articulation. And we talked to a couple other districts that do 5-minute quick artic kind of pull out for tier 2.
Yeah.
And then Yeah. And then there's another district we talked to where they do almost 90% of their speech interventions are at tier 2. That's in
Mhm.
California though. And so they have very different guidance as well. But that was San Diego Unified, I think, that does that. Yeah.
That does that, yeah.
And we still, so we've done like speedy speech in the
Mhm.
past, which is still going to be a thing if the SLP wants to do that, but it would be after the review of existing data now.
Okay. Yes.
So if you said
it would
no,
be within that timeline
yeah,
of
and if evaluation isn't warranted because of XYZ, but the SLP can recommend, you know, speedy speech twice a week for 5 minutes. Or something.
Okay. Yeah, because Amplio does have the MTSS tracks for speech for those of you that that are interested or are curious about that. And Amplio's student profiles does get, capture whether it be, the expressive language tracks or whether it is the speech tracks. It does capture all that the student's speech. Within their student profile, so that whether it is a teacher, para, or a speech therapist who is, providing the interventions, the student's speech is captured, so that even if it's not the speech therapist who is taking that data,
and what Stephanie means by that is there's a recording of the students' responses that is captured into the profile.
To be able to hear it later or even play it in that MTSS meeting or whenever you would need to hear that student data, the student's recording, you could play it back, for later. Thank you for that clarification, Becca. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, keep those questions in the chat if you need to. So all of these things, what makes it possible? We have reduction in referrals, hopefully manageable caseloads, especially because we all know staffing shortages are a real thing these days, right? There's not enough SLPs to go around. Targeted timely support, better outcomes, more time for SLPs to provide that intensive student support. I love her picture. Do we all look like this? And tiered speech and language intervention becomes a reality. So we really feel strongly that Emily just might pull us off this year. I mean, I'm feeling like you guys are going to have some really good outcomes. They have a real system in place. I mean, it can only go up from here. I think this is a really neat thing that they've got going on. So any questions so far? I've got some really good questions of things that we can talk about going around the roundtable, but is there any questions so far? I know we've got a lot of people on mute, but this was intended to be a roundtable. So is there any questions that you guys have so far? There's about 18 people in the room, but I have yet to hear from somebody so far. Any questions at all? Corey, Paul, Cynthia. I know Cynthia asked for the screening. What are some of your thoughts in your districts? Do any of you have an MTSS process in place so far? Or are we starting from scratch here? That's a pretty good question. Maybe you can throw up.
I think that's a great question, because I know, Emily, you mentioned that because your district already had a very robust district-wide MTSS system in place for academic and behavioral, or primarily academic concerns.
They're actually trying to roll out a behavioral one, but mainly right now it's academics.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of districts have that in place, and that does make it a little bit simpler to kind of piggyback on when you're looking at adding another domain to that. So
yeah. So I went ahead and stopped my presenting of the slide deck in hopes that we could kind of take this opportunity to go around the room a little bit and talk a little bit more about what does it look like in the other districts around the room? I know we had 15 different districts sign up for this chat. So is there an MTSS process in place in Yukon? I think there was Enola in the room. So Cynthia's going to be, okay. Let's see.
So last year they got, Cynthia, I couldn't remember where you were from. But yeah, so you guys had Altus. Okay. Altus. So you guys had a structured MTSS for academics, it sounds like, which is where Putnam City started as well, and not yet for speech. But I hope it's inspiring to kind of hear what Putnam City is doing, because they really did tackle that head on.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so not yet for speech. All right. And do you think, Cynthia, do you think it's something that your district's ready to do? Are they gearing up to do something like this, or do you think the admin buy-in is tough? Because I think that's, I mean, what really helped, Diane, I'm gonna toot your horn for a minute here. But what was amazing about Emily and Diane was like they came to me pretty collectively, and we're like, here we go, like we're doing this. I was like, wow. I was like, it was so amazing to have these two people collectively come to me, and you guys, I mean, you were impressive. I have to say.
It has been really helpful to have of the you know, the person in charge
right
to back
right
you know, to say that this is what we're doing, this is the process that we're rolling out.
I've been hosting these off mutes all summer, and we talk. I see Paul has chatted. I'll share yours in just a moment, Paul, but we have been hosting these off mutes all summer. It's been so cool. It's SLPs across the country, and we're all talking MTS, and it's just been these really amazing conversations. And one of the biggest challenges that SLPs will share with me is they say, like, I don't know if I can get my admin to buy in on, you know, on doing this, and where's the money going to come from, and what are, you know, it's hard. Yeah. So Paul says in Lawton, we are still in a development phase, specifically for academics and behavior. I hear that a lot, Paul. Yeah, SPED is luckily has been part of the discussion, and implementation is approaching. Yeah,
that's great, actually, because that puts you a step ahead of, I know, where a lot of districts are, where it's been primarily a gen ed initiative, and SPED has been locked out of that discussion process. And you know, as you can probably speak to, Diane, it's so critical to have SPED involvement because it impacts everyone.
It is, and just to that note, as Emily said, when we came forward to with this proposal, sure, there's the backings, because, you know, the next question always, and I think I even said to all of you, like, now I got to pay. How are we going to pay for this? Because it was happening in a little bit different path than what traditionally probably Amplio is implemented, you know, for some districts. And so, but with this, and we're going to, right now, this is all like theory, right? We're trying to roll this out and see how this actually happens in practice, but we went forward, like I said, because of the structure that we have within the district, that we're really fortunate. We understand how lucky we are in that sense. And that special services has been at the table, and kind of then put ourselves back at the table again with academic services to talk about what the need, why this need existed, and how we thought this could kind of dovetail into a current structure that already we had in play and in place, because you know, with everybody's busy, right? So it's about what are we going to keep, start, stop in these situations. And so we wanted to try whatever we were bringing in was something that was going to fit into a process that already was happening. And so part of that is we'll also roll this out with our principals, with our administrators, primarily elementary, but secondary will be part of that conversation as well too. And then next with our instructional coaches across the district, because they're going to get just as many questions in all this as we will. And so we kind of wanted to make sure it wasn't just throwing any one group out there to say like, hey, we're doing this now, that we were helping bring, you know, understand the why. You know, this is here's what exists for us now, and here's a solution we think will help us to address it. And it's going to take all of us in doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
I would think too, this is Kathleen popping in again because I'm just so excited about this, that I'm certain you are also putting a lot of time up front into determining what measures you're going to be capturing, because you're going to need support, not only in your district, but as others want to model what you're doing. You're going to have to convince a variety of different people that they're going to benefit from this. So, you know, what's happening in the classroom, what's happening with the caseload, what's happening with kids' progress, what's happening with cost offsetting the cost of a more traditional, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, that would be critical. I'm sure that you've thought of that up front, but those various measures are going to be so convincing to so many different people if you can capture that.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Kathleen.
Yeah. We were lucky that like at the end of the year, I was able to get all of the data for referrals, initials, everything from our SLPs at the end of last year, which helped, that data helped get buy-in for this process too. But it'll be really interesting, I think, to compare through the end of this year the difference in the data.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
for
That's
sure.
great that you collected all your baseline, Emily, just
Yes.
like a really
Right.
good SLP does do.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I know Chelsea put in the chat. I know we haven't covered UConn. She said they're in the same boat in UConn. Strong MTS system for academics, not so much for speech. Sounds like a similar theme, right?
Yeah.
Similar pattern here. Given the new changes, they're working to determine what's best to meet their district's needs moving forward. It sounds like a very similar theme. Yeah, for sure.
I think one of the things that's really neat about getting teachers involved with, especially on the language side, with the interventions, the direct interventions for language concerns, is that I think what becomes very, very clear to everyone very quickly is how much this oral language support that they might be providing is impacting what they're doing with literacy and impacting what they're doing with academics, and is providing a strong foundation for all of that. And I think like when speech is siloed in SPED and the teachers don't have a chance to see what are all of these very specific skills that we're often working on with kids, they don't necessarily get that like hands-on experience of like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm working on when I'm building literacy skills. There's these, word endings and, the grammar elements
Right.
and that, those kinds of things that are so integral to what they're doing in the classroom anyway, that it's kind of cool to realize like, this is a shared responsibility, as a school community, that we can all work on these things and support these kiddos, at the outset.
Yeah, the collaboration and the empowerment, is very neat. Very neat. Agreed.
I think that is going to take some education for our general education teachers, because I think they kind of view speech as like we just have a magic wand when that we're somehow just going to completely fix it automatically. So I think that's going to take education from the SLPs in each building in our district to let those teachers know, this is within your scope. Like these are tier 1 things that you are teaching in your classroom. Like you are able to do this tier 2 intervention. And we actually I've got a PowerPoint that the building SLPs are going to be giving to kind of give some education on that in buildings, and then they on what is a good referral, what isn't a good referral, that sort of thing.
Fabulous.
And on that same note, like when so Oklahoma, we we're in the news a lot lately for education. But what I will say is that one thing that I think supported us in our effort were our ELA standards, and because of the fact that has listening and speaking and those things built in there. And so you're right. So the education's right there. It's just a matter of how do we pull that out. That's what I think helped in our conversation with our district at the district level with academic services, was to say like, with our curriculum coordinators, we were like, hey, this is really right here. And this is really, it's about, we know when we're talking about literacy, that this is when all these things are working together, that's what's in the best interest of kids. And so I will say, I think I have to give credit to Emily and to our assistant director, Lee Harris, about with kind of making those connections, because I think that was the other convincing part of I guess if you had to be convincing, but like I said, it was the other part that really made people the light bulb moment, right? Like this does work together. You can't have these things happen in silos or in isolation.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, Cynthia, she said we have new SPED admin right now, so they are allowing me to take the lead. Very nice. Take advantage of that.
Yeah.
In the chat. Run with that. Go. Yeah, very lovely. Anyone else? I think there's about 16 people on the call. So if anyone else hasn't had the chance to say where your district is in the MTSS process for speech, feel free to chip in the chat if you haven't had a chance to chip in the chat about what you guys are doing for MTSS for speech. Feel free to add it to that. I think we've heard from quite a few of you guys on where you're at, but feel free to add in if you have not. Add in where you're at. But yeah, great process that you've got going so far. I'm really excited to hear how it goes for you for this school year. And any other questions that you guys have in regards to it, please feel free to enter into the chat. I know we've only got a couple minutes left in our set time that we had for this roundtable this morning, but any questions you have, or Kathleen, if there's anything in your wisdom in all these years that you'd like to add in. I know I was telling, I was fortunate enough to have Judy Rich in the roundtable that I held last Thursday. And I was telling Becca that I was looking for an article to share post this roundtable that I had for MTSS last week. And I was Googling, I was like, I need an MTSS article for, to share. And I happened to come up to an article on Reading Rackets that had Kathleen in it and Judy Rich. And it was back from 2004. And I thought, oh my gosh, these great minds were doing this back in 2004. They were pioneering this, this response to intervention. You guys were thinking of this way back when. So it's just got to be neat to see how it's now, coming to fruition. I mean, it's on everyone's radars now. It's truly something that I think speech teams are now thinking about it. You're now realizing with the state of that we are in when it comes to, I talk to districts every week. It's the staffing shortages, it's the bloated caseloads, and just the condition that we're in with the number of students that are being referred, and just the fact that we can't manage it. What do we do? And the biggest response is we've got to implement an MTSS system. We just have to put something in place that's going to try to get ahead and try to solve that problem. And so it's just neat to see it all kind of come to fruition. So it's
it's so exciting because we saw, it was so clear when that came out in IDEA. It was like, oh my God, you get what this just handed us? I mean, it completely changed the game for speech language services in the schools, completely changed it. The problem is, the schools are so complex. I always say, I don't know which responds worse to change, government, higher ed, or public schools. I mean, they just don't want to change because they're very complex systems, and everybody has their own agenda. And but you can see that so much can be gained from this, which is why, I harp on the data thing. What does it do to your caseload? What does it do to your workload? What does it do to student progress? What does it do to cost? What does it do to shortages? What does it do to being able to use different staff differently in a more efficient manner? All of this can be brought into this, but people need to be shown that. As there, Stephanie, you started out so well at the beginning, and everybody's so overwhelmed with everything starting the schools. How can we get the message to them on how so many parts of public ed can benefit from putting this model in place and making that effort? So, models like this are going to be really important to put out there, and Amplio for having all of those materials that can be used.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, like I said, we haven't even had our training yet for Amplio, I think at the end of the month, but we're looking forward to implementing the interventions with Amplio. We thought through several ideas of how to provide the interventions, and then when I, in my research, stumbled across Amplio, I thought, this is perfect. This is exact. If I could dream up what we needed, this was it. So
I think where I've seen where it kind of makes a difference, over the past is where, you can see where people try to kind of piecemeal and granularly put things together, paper and pencil methods, or creating something on your own. I speak to a lot of people that try to develop their own things, and they put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's great what they try to do, and they put a lot of effort into that, and it's wonderful. Digital tools, there's a place for them. I think what helps is when you have something that's more plug and play, it eases the burden off everyone, and it's a system in place where the data tracking is more automated, and where it's visible across all educators, and there's just nothing that can really replace that. Does that make sense? I mean, that's what makes it visible for everyone to see, and puts it kind of plug and play in place. And I think the ease of the burden is what really makes it.
I think there isn't anyone who works in the schools these days who has extra capacity on their hands, right? Like, we're all working at over 100% of our capacity. And so anything we can do to reduce some of the burden on anyone, whether it's an SLP or a classroom teacher, is something, worth investing in for sure.
One thing too, and I'm not sure where Putnam schools are with this, is to embed this within a model of workload.
Mhm,
and not caseload. You know,
mhm,
that if you can put that within workload
mhm,
and look at how you're reassigning the different tasks that SLPs are involved in, that's
mhm,
going to be very powerful. Get away from every slot filled with a kid.
mhm,
People have trouble letting go of that.
mhm,
So, you know, if you already have a good workload model going, a good workload thinking going, that's going to make a big difference. But it's critical that that's part um, of how you're presenting what SLPs are doing, how you're presenting what the classroom teacher is doing, or how you're presenting what others are doing, and
mhm.
how their time is assigned in order to get the work done. And using workload model is it really needs to go hand in glove with what you're doing with MTSS.
Yeah, it's a great point, Kathleen.
Yeah, we've even had to, I mean, we do use a workload, like with actually the Oklahoma State Department has put out a workload calculator.
Mhm,
And it doesn't quite take into consideration all of those things, but it is a helpful tool. And then of course ASHA has their workload calculator. But that is even one thing we had to consider because previously the SLPs didn't attend the monthly data meetings. So
Right.
that's a responsibility that we're now adding on to them. So we've had to have those conversations about how to shift those responsibilities now that we're, you know, it's something expected this year.
Mhm,
Yeah, there are a lot of examples of that on the ASHA website, and actually Judy Rich was part of the original committee that we formed to do this, so she knows
mhm,
also. But there are a lot of examples there if you know those.
mhm. For sure.
Yeah. I want to make sure that I address all of my questions that I was going to ask you guys. I think I got to them all, and the chat is still open if anyone has any. Oh, that was my last one was actually, I'm looking at it now, SLP workload. I just addressed that one that I had on there. And that could you share information regarding good versus bad referrals? Cynthia.
Yeah, Emily, I think that might be for you. Yeah. Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
I had it unmuted every time. Yes, yeah, it's a Google slide deck, so I should be able to hopefully kind of after we get that pushed out to everyone our district, maybe share that with Stephanie so that we
anything you want to share with me, I can push out to everybody. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just a lot about like milestones, what's expected, what's not expected, that sort of thing.
Kind of it's a PD for the general ed teachers you guys are providing. Yeah.
And we're hoping that building administrators will let them present it at a faculty meeting, but if not, you know, to each grade level individually.
Great.
Yeah, I'll put up my information. I've got it on the bottom here. My my email, guys, is on the bottom right there. Any questions that you have for me or any information from Emily that Emily has, she's going to give to me. I will make sure that I get the information to you, since if you registered for the session, I do have your email that I can get that information from Emily and get it out to you. I know we talked about the screener information too as well, so I can get that information out to you guys. So yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to pop it in the chat, and I can always hang out for a couple minutes afterward. Corey said, thanks for sharing the information with us. I'd love to talk strategy with you guys after the hack too. Reach out to me anytime. And thank you for joining today. It was a great collaborative talk. We really appreciated meeting with you guys, talking to you about it. And I think that if you take away one nugget from this meeting, then it was worth the time, right, to come together and discuss the new changes that are in place and what Putnam City's doing to do something, to put things forward and change the game. So thank you for joining again today. I hope you guys have a great start to your school year tomorrow when students start. Best of luck to everybody, and thanks for coming today.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks again, Emily, for spearheading this with me, and have a good rest of your day. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carissa. This was great. She said, thank you for sharing. Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.